Although they're not binding, they are what the courts have said to be of magnetic importance. So they are very influential.
Can you have a post-nup? Is it too
You
late?
can have a post-nup as well, yes. And post-nups are even more binding.
I do sometimes look at my single friends and think, oh my gosh, you can just get up and go and travel, or you can move abroad, or you can explore without having to think about someone else's job, someone else's situation, someone else's finances.
Hello and welcome back to the Pension Confident Podcast with me, Philippa Lamb. This month, hot off the heels of Valentine's Day, we're looking at the difference your relationship status can make to your finances. There are so many ways to be in a relationship. Right now, you might be happy just concentrating on yourself, or maybe you're looking around for a new partner. Some of you will be cohabiting or living with a friend or a sibling. Maybe you're married or in a civil partnership, or perhaps you're separated, divorced or widowed. Most of us are going to cycle through at least a couple of those situations in our lifetime, but each one brings its own financial questions and challenges. So today we're going to put relationships under the microscope and look at how you can take care of your finances, whichever one you're in. I'm joined by three guests with plenty to bring on that: personal finance expert and blogger at This Girl Talks Money, Ellie Austin-Williams. Hello, Ellie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Next, we have barrister, mediator, family arbitrator and a spokesperson for the free legal assistance charity Advocate, Paul Infield. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
And lastly, Becky O'Connor is with us, PensionBee's Vice President for Public Affairs. Hi, Becky.
Hello.
Before we start, here's the usual disclaimer. Please do remember anything discussed in this podcast should not be regarded as financial advice. And when investing, your capital is at risk.
There's economies of scale to living with one other person or four other people because you save on energy. You save on all the fixed costs of being in a house and living. You save on food costs because, well, if you eat together anyway and you prepare a meal for four people, generally per person it's cheaper than preparing a meal for one person or buying a ready meal. There are, with council tax, there are discounts for single people, but it's not 50%. It's not, it's not proportionate. It is partially recognised, but generally speaking, the singles tax refers to you not benefiting from the economies of scale of living with more people.
If you are single, you still need to think about writing a will, because a lot of people don't write wills. I did a trawl round my place of work some years ago, and over half of my fellow barristers in my chambers had not written a will, and I simply asked them whether they thought they weren't going to die. And the fact is, I wrote my first will when I was 18 because I was going away from home abroad and thought it was sensible to leave what little I had to somebody.
That was sensible, 18.
I think my father bullied me into that, but it's something that people ought to think about very early.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the thing that people, again, don't think about is the impact of not having a will. And again, it's something that I feel like we maybe need to be educated more about. We need to talk about more. But like you say, it's one of those topics like money where people don't really like talking about death. But if you don't have a will, the consequences can be catastrophic. Yeah, I think it's so hard now because I do think that a lot of people do think like that, particularly, again, because of the cost of things like property, the ability to borrow. It is simple that if there are two of you, it is much more affordable. You can borrow more money to buy a property. But there are also these huge benefits. And I do sometimes look at my single friends and think, oh my gosh, you can just get up and go and travel, or you can move abroad, or you can explore without having to think about someone else's job, someone else's situation, someone else's finances. And as much as, there are benefits to that, it does in some respects definitely tie you down and make you have to think about someone else as well. So you can have a lot more freedom, you can explore more, you can use your money how you want to use it rather than necessarily how both of you collectively want to use it, which I think can be a really good thing.
I grew up, I went to an all-girls school and we were all very ambitious and we were all very much like, we're not going to depend on anyone. We're going to be very successful and great at everything. And
obviously,
that was kind of the culture of the school. Like, you're women going out into the world and you're going to be brilliant. And that was all true, of course. But then I had kids with my husband, and I was dependent on him for a time. I'm not now, although we do share all of our costs. So I think there are times when you'll be caught out, things will happen. You might find that you're more dependent on somebody than you would like to be. But I have tried very hard to kind of rebuild my own pension and my own career after taking a few years out when the kids were younger.
I think it's why it's so important, though, as well, in a relationship to be communicating about topics like money, because my husband and I, we don't have children yet, but it's something we talk about, and we already have had conversations around, well, what does that look like for careers and earnings? And I work for myself, so it's something that I think about a lot. And we've already discussed, well, what is your shared parental leave policy? These types of questions that luckily his employer has a good policy, but I think a lot of people don't even know that it's an option or explore it as an option. And how are we going to factor in childcare in a way that maybe will not impact one person's career fully and leave the other person's career? How do we balance that? It's conversations that we're having already before we have to kind of face up to it because there's a child here.
There are a lot of people out there who think that they have some legal protection if they are cohabiting for a period of time.
The common law idea.
The common law marriage idea. Which,
is it anything? Is it a reality?
No.
Total nonsense?
No, it never has been. Certainly not since 1751, and there's a controversy about whether it existed before that, before the Marriage Act of 1751. And every now and again I end up with normally a woman sitting across my desk talking about common law marriage. She's been living with a man for, say, 20, 30 years. She's brought up his kids. She's given up her own career to do that. The children have left home, and he has now run off and often with somebody else. And I have to tell her that she will get nothing, that the law doesn't provide for her.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. If the house is in his name, as it very often is,
and the children are gone.
And the children are gone, she gets nothing.
I think property is a really interesting and also complex area again, isn't it, when it comes to couples, because you've got so many variations of what can happen. But I think even from a very basic perspective, knowing if you are buying a property together, whether you are buying and discussing whether you're buying as tenants in common or joint tenants is a big decision. And especially if you're putting in different amounts of money towards the property, then discussing whether you should be looking at being tenants in common so that you are represented proportionally rather than down the middle, which I think a lot of people don't think about.
Although they're not binding, they are what the courts have said to be of magnetic importance. So they are very influential. And I have dealt with a number of cases with prenups where the courts have basically said, yes, we'll go with the prenup.
Can you have a post-nup? Is it too late?
You can have a post-nup as well, yes. And post-nups are even more binding. Well, sometimes literally you have a prenup and then immediately after the marriage, literally after you sign the register, you sign the post-nup because they are even more binding. And so that's the first reason that I think you should have it. The second thing, in some ways, is more important. It forces people to talk about one of those three things that British people in particular, find very difficult to talk about, which is money. And I have actually been involved in the drafting of a prenup which ended up with the couple not marrying because my advice was that I thought the prenup was so unfair that the courts wouldn't enforce it. And so my client, who was the intended husband, decided not to go ahead with the marriage.
Rather than amend it?
Rather than amend it.